This is one I wanted to answer. Yes. Where is it? There we go. The Overwhelmed Brain podcast. The Overwhelmed Brain podcast has this question. I want to hear about any pranks you pulled on each other at Mythbusters. Any memorable ones? I got to tell you about me and pranks. I don't love pranks. I don't mind the idea of a prank in theory. The idea of a thing you think is going one way that's surprisingly not going that way. The problem is that most pranking borders on cruelty. Early on in my courtship of Mrs. Don't Try This, my partner, we were on our way somewhere and she was like, "Oh, do you have the keys?" And I went, "Oh!" And then I was like, "That's fine, they're right here." And she was like, "I gotta tell you," she said, "I hate that feeling. That feeling of panic, of the thing not going right." She's like, there's nothing recreationally enticing to me about that feeling. I just don't want to experience it. And I realized I don't either. And then I started, as you could imagine, Jamie and I were pitched tons of prank shows. But like Punk'd, man, Punk'd has some genuinely hilarious moments, but a lot of the time I feel really bad for the people who are unhinged and emotional and don't realize that this is a prank. I find that really unpleasant to watch. I was interviewing, I was lucky enough to be asked for the Commonwealth Club here in San Francisco to interview John Cleese when he wrote his autobiography a few years ago. And I interviewed Cleese on stage, and it was one of the most fun interviews I have ever done. And at one point, he said to me, "I wonder why people don't prank much anymore." And I said just what I said to you, because I think it's really hard to prank in a kind way, and pranks are often cruel. And I watched Cleese, who's one of the more open and awake people I've ever sat across from. I watched him take that in and be like, "Right, no, you're really right about that," he said. And then he told me about a prank a friend of his played on their wife. This is back in the 70s when turtles were all the rage at pet stores and everybody had a pet turtle. And this guy came home and his wife had a pet turtle. And he's like, "Why'd you get a turtle? It's like barely interested in us." And she's like, "Well, they had a ton of them at the pet store." And then she went to work and he went back to the pet store and he turned her turtle in and got a slightly bigger one. And he did this every day for a week. And she was like, "What are we feeding this thing?" And then he revealed and went back and got the original turtle and revealed that the prank had happened. That, I think, is a cute prank, right? Small town prank. That's fine. So I'll tell you about a prank between me and Jamie. I am a kind of person who can sleep anywhere. You put me in the back seat of a car and I'll be like, right away. And I snore. And I snored more back when we were making Mythbusters. I snored more because I was heavier. I actually lost weight in part to deal with my sleep apnea. So I snore. So I'm a loud sleeper. And it used to really piss Jamie off that we'd be driving to some location and immediately I'd fall asleep and it's like my snoring is filling the car, which I agree can be awful. So one time, Jamie looks down and he sees that when you sit in jeans, the front of your jeans makes a sort of natural pocket just below your belt, above your groin. There's like this sort of like dip there. And Jamie was sitting in front of me. I'm sitting in the way back sleeping. And he's sitting in front of me and he's got a bottle of water and he looks back at me and he takes the bottle of water and he just like, boink, just drops a little bit there on my pants, on my crotch. And I sleep right through it. I keep on sleeping, I keep on snoring, and within the next 15 minutes, Jamie manages to empty an entire bottle of water onto me while I'm sleeping in the back seat. And I'm not lying. I was having the weirdest dream. It was incorporating all of that wetness, and then I woke up out of the dream. And I woke up slightly disoriented, but I could tell that things were wet here. And I could see Jamie facing the front. Now, here's the thing about Jamie. Jamie doesn't show his moods in a normal way. Happy Jamie, delighted Jamie is not that different from angry Jamie. It's a very small bandwidth. But what Jamie has is a mood head. When he is experiencing a high mood, it's often discernible by the color of his head. And I could see in this backseat, in my discombobulation, that Jamie's head was bright red. So I could tell I was dealing with mirth Jamie. Jamie thought something was hilarious and he was holding it in. And I realized that Jamie had pranked me by making my crotch wet while I was sleeping. And I smacked him on the back of his red head. Not hard, but I smacked him on the back of the head and I said, do you really want to go here? Because I will find the one thing that is funny to everybody but you. And there was this long pause and he turned to me and he was like, you're right, I'll never do it again. And we never did it again. And part of the reason is because he saw the logic that we were like nuclear powers when it comes to pranking. We could come up with some nefarious stuff. And I was willing to go to war, and he was realizing, like, no, that's not productive. That's not how we want to do this. And we never did prank again. I did once come back to the network. They asked me to do a prank show, and I came back with the idea of a really expensive prank show. And I'll pitch it to you right now. My idea of a prank show was taking someone and, you know, you'd put them up in a hotel in the Central Valley, some place where you could have control over the hotel and its grounds and even like a block away. And they would wake up and it would be like 1940 Poland or medieval Europe, or there was clearly a dragon attack 3 hours ago outside and now the world is dealing with its aftermath, or alien attack. Just like, instead of something where it's like that person feels like everything is on them and they're being humiliated, here the show would basically create an impossible circumstance and let someone live inside that impossible circumstance for a short period of time. It's an expensive show. It's an expensive way to do pranks. And it obviously didn't take because we never made that show. But yeah, that's where we were with prank culture. And look, there was an effects shop. Prank cultures can get really bad in a hurry. There was an effects shop here in Northern California that had a prank culture. And there was like, at one point, one employee pranked another, making him think he had a job at a shop he'd always wanted to work at. And when the guy went to that shop to report for the job, he was so excited he brought his wife and his kid, but there was no job waiting for him because it was a prank. And then the guy got escorted away from that job by security in front of his wife and his kid. That is horrifying to me. And that's exactly the kind of unintended consequence that can come from the hardy har show up for work on Monday. Life is too short to do that kind of thing to people. Let's not. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I wanted to briefly mention that you could become a tested member. I know, everybody is competing for you to become a member of their thing. What I want to express to you is that the Tested membership has become such an important part of the Tested family. We get tremendous feedback from the Tested members, and they expand the stories that we can tell and the things that we have access to. And you can become a part of it right now by clicking on the link below. See you in the chat.